This is Mikayla Naguera on her TikTok, and this is Mikayla Naguera at the Hannah Montana premiere. These were literally the same day, the same person, the same face, obviously. I want to be very clear before we go any further with this video. I'm not here to shame her appearance. I'm not here to shame anybody's appearance. I'm here to examine what we actually see versus what is going on with these two different images that were literally probably only taken a couple hours apart. If you don't know me, I have been a professional photographer for over 15 years. I also have a degree in communications with an emphasis in journalism, and I also specialize in marketing. So we're going to be taking a deep dive today between these two photos of Mikayla Naguera, and we are going to see what is happening and examine what we can actually prove that is happening with these two images. Like I said, we are not here to shame anybody. That is not what this video is about. You're not shaming an appearance. We're dissecting why Mikayla looks different between these two images. We're going to start with what I can defend as being a photographer. We have, the TikTok. We also have the in real life photograph video footage. The internet is flattening this complex issue, and they just keep saying, oh, she's applying a filter and that's why they look so different. But it actually goes a lot deeper than that. I want to be really, really precise on it being more than just a filter issue. And we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different breakdowns that have to do with when you were photographed with a professional camera versus when you were photographed or videoed with a smartphone, more or less. So, I also did an experiment with my own face, and I took photos of my face, and they were literally seconds apart in the same light with the same makeup, and you'll see that the lighting doesn't change, but the angle changes, and that's the first point. Usually if you point your camera below your chin, you're going to see that, there's a lot more. You can see my double chin. You can see some of the, the fatness in my cheeks. And then when you actually shoot from above, you're actually going to get a slimming effect with your face. And that's called a downward projection. So it's coming downward. It compresses the jaw and makes your face look skinnier. You can't see the double chin. You can't see all of this underneath. It just compresses the jawline and makes it look sharper. And the camera shooting towards your face, straight on, it elongates your face. So it makes it look a little bit longer. So when I actually am photographed, my face is actually a little bit shorter as opposed to when I'm on my YouTube channel, it looks a little bit longer, and it all is dependent on the angle. This is photography 101. When I set up a shoot with somebody, I use their best angles to get their features to look the best way. Now, we need to also talk about focal lengths and lens compression, which is focal length is how long or short the lens is. It's wide versus a telephoto lens. So I shoot from my DSLR that I shoot on YouTube with a 50mm, and it is a not a DSLR. It's actually a mirrorless camera. I used to film on a DSLR, but now I film on a mirrorless camera. It is a 50mm. Now, typically a paparazzi, they are going to be shooting with a telephoto lens, which is one that has an extensive zoom so that they can get up close, because typically they are 20 feet or more away from their subject. They're behind the press line. They're behind the red carpet line where they are supposed to be. The telephoto lens, it compresses your features differently than a ring light selfie camera at arm's length. That's not an opinion. It is just simple photography fact. So when you are being photographed by a telephoto lens, it's going to compress your features differently than a smartphone camera. Lighting. This is a big one. Lighting in any kind of situation when it comes to photography. When I'm sitting in a studio setting, I have a ring light in front of me. I have two box diffuser lights. The reason why I have these box lights is so that I get an even light disbursement all over my face. And you will see that every angle of my face is lit really well so that you guys can get the full impact of the makeup so that I'm fully lit. Well, when it comes to walking the red carpet, or even taking a selfie like Mikayla typically does on her TikTok, she will be using her smartphone. Usually it's a front-facing camera, so the megapixels are smaller as well, but lighting has a lot to do with it. These types of lights are meant to be diffusing. They diffuse the light, they make it softer, which makes my features look softer. It makes my skin look softer. It doesn't make me look so rigid and hard. When you go on the red carpet, there's lots of flash photography. So you have very harsh light. Flash light is very, very harsh. And this is a hard directional lighting that is used, especially from different angles at the same time. And harsh lighting, it defines structure. You have more shadow, which defines structure. It doesn't diffuse the light. Soft facing light diffuses the light, which is typically what your influencers use, is a soft facing ring light with diffused light. And it just softens, it blurs your skin, and it makes it look more airbrushed on camera. Between these two different lighting settings, your bone structure is going to look so different between these two things. Now take into an account that there are multiple cameras with multiple hard flashes, so the lighting on that person's face, no matter who it is going to be completely different, and it's going to accentuate features that normally don't look like that in real life and when they're seen in a social media post. Their face is not going to look as airbrushed either because it's a harsh light. Now we're going to look at camera resolution and post-processing. Red carpet event cameras are typically more high-end. I'm not going to lie. Usually they're a DSLR. You have Entertainment Tonight, who actually uses a type of film digital camera with a higher megapixel on it. So the higher the megapixel, the more details that you get. A typical front-facing camera on an iPhone is, I want to say it's like 12 megapixels now. So it's not even nearly as high definition as what it is from a professional camera. Red carpet event cameras, they also shoot in conditions that are not flattering to anyone. There's tons of different lenses that are used by each individual paparazzi. It's not consistent across the board for whatever lens that they are using. Different lenses, different angles, different camera types, different quality in the photograph that they are producing, because the camera can have so many different settings just in that itself that really affect the photograph. So this is also contributing to consistent lighting changes, the way that it intercepts light, the way that it is sensitive to light as well. If I could do a whole class just on how a camera works, I would, and I could go into so much more detail about how camera settings really affect a photograph. Like if the light sensitivity is set really, really high on a photograph, it makes it more grainy and less smooth. If the shutter speed it is too low and somebody is moving, it's going to blur the photograph. And if they're using flash, that's also going to affect the photograph as well. And that's just a couple of things that I can point out in photography and why these would look so different on a red carpet versus, you know, at an event where you meet this person, or even on social media. None of these concepts though, the lenses, the camera types, the angles, the consistently changing lighting, this is not controllable at all by anybody who's being photographed. So you're going to get inconsistencies with the way people look. All of these variables are real, okay? They are real. It is photography 101. When you know how a camera works, when you know how lighting works, when you know how flash works, you know this. I can defend every single one of these points to a T. Like I know from my own experience. And it does account for some of what we see with Mikayla Nogueira's makeup and the way that she appears differently between social media and, you know, live at a red carpet event. There is no lie there, but it does get pretty complicated. We are going to get into that. If you're only dealing with angle, lighting, and the lens, I could write off the entire thing as like, okay, it's just bad lighting, it's the equipment and all that kind of stuff, as like it's a wash. But what a camera does not do ever. These are some key points that we're going to point out. People pointed out in her videos is that her nose shape changed. Multiple comments, multiple sources noted that the nose bridge, the bridge of her nose, the shape differs on Mikayla. In these paparazzi photos, it was more pronounced and it was just like more, it was bigger, it was more there. And it was a structural observation of her face, not lighting. the way that her face actually transferred onto camera. Depending on the type of lens that is used, it will make your nose look smaller, like thinner, or wider, but it's not going to add like a bridge to your nose. It's not going to define that. Mikayla has pointed out that like in other creators' content, she looks the same as what she does in her own content, but these creators also use ring lights and they use similar setups to Mikayla. So Mikayla is going to look the same because it's a very same situation versus when she's out in public. These creators also use filtered equipment. So her argument that like I look the same in other content creators' videos is not credible by any means. There's also been an observation that Mikayla has freckles that come and go on her face, which I find really weird. I'm not gonna lie. This is where I want to be careful because I want to show you rather than just tell you about this observation. Freckles do not appear and disappear based on lighting changes mid-sentence. Like if you have a freckle, it's gonna be there through the whole thing. It's not gonna disappear. It's not a camera trick, it's a filter trick. It is the filter responding to movement and trying to filter your face constantly. I do have a demonstration for you because I had to test this out myself, okay? I need to show you this. And I don't think a lot of people actually know about this because I didn't personally know about it until I was really paying attention to what was going on my personal TikTok. I wanted to show you this video that I took and I was screen recording to show you what my face looks like with a filter that is automatically applied onto TikTok. And this is just a simple, it's not even one that you select in the filters gallery. It's just slight adjustments that they enhance or correct depending on what is going on, depending on what version of TikTok you have, and honestly what region you are in as well. It applies a facial modification by default in some configurations, which is what mine does. And a creator may not manually select a filter, but it is still happening to their footage. This weird enhancement is still happening. And like I said, I know this because I tested it myself. I did not select it. It was automatically on when I tried to film myself with my front-facing camera. And when I realized that that enhancement, that correction was on, I turned it off, refilmed myself, and did a before and an after comparison. I have a couple of these on my TikTok, and I will leave my TikTok down below so that you guys can see. But you will note that my face looks different when it's actively applied to my face looks so different than compared to when it is off my face. It blurs my fine lines, it blurs my my mom bags, it blurs some of my beauty spots, and it just makes me look more youthful. It just enhances my natural skin and it makes me look more airbrushed. This is super important because the question isn't just, does Mikayla use filters? The question is, which filters applied at which stage, and does professional disclosure require acknowledging them? Is this something that's just turning on automatically on her TikTok and she doesn't know? Or is she always using it, but you know, it doesn't show up as a filter that was used, so she is not disclosing it. You will also note that when you do use certain types of filters, it does disclose it on the video itself. Like when you select a certain type of filter, like the green screen filter, for example, it has like a little acknowledgement that says green screen on it, which she does have some filters like that on her video as well for green screen. The question is, do people need to disclose and acknowledge that a filter was used? And the FTC has very clear guidelines on material disclosure of filters and in sponsored content. There is no equivalent regulatory standard that requires you to disclose if you use a filter or not. And that is really sad to say at this point in time, because having a filter can be very deceptive, because you could be advertising that, oh, look, this blurs my fine lines, look what it does to my fine lines, but that could all be a filter. And the FTC doesn't have any regulations against disclosures of filters right now. It is a really huge gap in regulatory framework, especially when it comes to content creation. And it's one that the industry is talking about, but I am seeing that people want something done about disclosing filters as well. So we're going to look at the marketing autopsy, and here it is for you: intent versus ignorance. Here's the question I want to sit with for a moment, because this is where the conversation gets uncomfortable. what we can establish versus what we can't establish. TikTok auto corrections do exist and they modify the appearance of someone. Whether Mikayla has knowingly used it or not, and I'm not saying she has or she hasn't, but it is a possibility. There are camera of variables that account for appearance differences. So exactly what percent is the camera versus what percent is a filter or software that is being used. What we can establish is that her nose shape change exceeds a typical lens variable and typical camera settings. Like, it's not going to make your nose look more bridged. It's not going to change the facial structure of your face. Whether Facetune or a similar filter was applied post-capture on her TikTok videos, we don't know. But a camera in real life without those types of filters is not going to, overpronounce the bridge of your nose. And also pointing to the freckles and the freckle behavior, and it suggests a real-time filter response, which means that it is constantly filtering and trying to catch up with her face. And what we can establish is that that was very much intentional. She doesn't want her freckles to be shown. Mikayla says she doesn't use filters. That statement might be typically true in the narrow definition that she's applying. That she didn't go into the filter library and she didn't select a filter to filter out her face, but the question of whether her content accurately depicts what she looks like, the people she is selling her beauty products to when they see her on screen, is that who you're seeing that is selling things to you? The question has a huge and different answer. It's not a legal question, it's an ethics question. They are two different things. Here's where I land on this whole situation. Like, is she filtered? Does she really look like that? And as someone who has spent 15 years being a professional photographer, I work in marketing, I have a journalism degree. What cameras do to faces, I know, okay? And as someone who spent some time testing what's going on inside TikTok as in regards to like that automated enhancement filter, this is what I have come to. The camera variables are real. I can establish them. I know how a camera works. They account for a portion of what we're seeing in Mikayla when she is seen live on the red carpet. There is no lie about it, okay? But the auto corrections feature in TikTok is very real. I've demonstrated it to you guys in this video, and it runs without you specifically selecting it and turning it on. It's automatic. What I cannot tell you. Anybody inside Mikayla's editing workflow could tell you if she was using filters or not, but if you're outside of that, you don't know. Is the precise combination of tools that she applied to her content? We don't know. But what I can tell you is the gap between her controlled content and uncontrolled footage exceeds what camera physics alone can produce. It is a gap that exists, it is documentable, and the audience is not wrong to notice that there is a difference. So is this deception or is this ignorance? Is this just a default that she doesn't know about? You have the evidence right now to evaluate that for yourself with what was provided in this video. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm just giving you the evidence. I'm giving you my professional opinion as a photographer for 15 years and as a marketing guru, as a marketing professional, and as a journalist. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you guys consider subscribing before you go for more marketing journalistic lenses on the beauty space, and I hope I get to see you in my next video.